Welcome to today's lesson. Our learning target today is I can round decimal numbers to the nearest one, also called whole number, tenth, and hundredth. Let's begin. There are 3 steps to rounding decimals. Step 1, identify the digit in the place you are rounding. Step 2, identify the digit to the right that you will use to round. Step 3, if the digit in step 2 is 0 through 4, keep the digit you are rounding as it is. We also call that rounding down. If the digit in step 2 is 5 through 9, move the digit you're rounding up to the next digit. Let's make sense of this by looking at many examples. In this example, we are asked to round to the nearest tenth, and the number is 9 and 81 hundredths. So step 1 says, identify the digit in the place you are rounding. Well, we are rounding the tenths place, and that is the digit 8. Step 2 says, now identify the digit to the right that we'll use to round. The digit to the right of the 8 is the 1 in the hundredths place. That is what we will use to round the 8. Now, step 3 says, if the digit in step 2 is the digits 0 through 4, keep that digit you're rounding as it is. Well, we can stop there because look at that. The digit from step 2, the 1 to the right of the 8 that we're rounding in the tenths place, is in fact between 0 and 4. And so we will keep the digit we're rounding, the 8, as it is. And that makes our rounded answer 9 and 8 tenths. Now, if we look at it using a number line, and here I have a number line already labeled and ready to go, I think we can make a little more sense out of this. If we're given 9 and 81 hundredths, and if we're looking at the 1 in the hundredths place to help us round, we can see 9 and 81 hundredths here on the number line. This number line goes from 9 and 80 hundredths to 9 and 89 hundredths. And we can see that the 9 and 81 hundredths that we were given is much closer to 9 and 8 tenths, or 9 and 80 hundredths. Much closer. Look at the distance. It's just a distance of 1 hundredth. Whereas the distance between this number and the next number up is 9 hundredths. That's a huge distance. So it's much closer to this number here, 9 and 8 tenths. And so that is our final answer. In this next example, we're asked to round to the nearest tenth. Remember step 1, identify the digit in the place you are rounding. That's the tenths place. So in this number, 18 and 57 hundredths, the 5 is in the tenths place. Step 2 says identify the digit to the right that you will use to round. The digit to the right of the tenths place is a 7 in the hundredths place. And now, in step 3, if that digit from step 2, in this case it's a 7, is between 0 and 4, keep the digit you're rounding as it is. Well, 7 is not between 0 and 4, so let's keep reading. If the digit in step 2 is between 5 and 9, and in fact 7 is between 5 and 9, then we're going to move the digit we're rounding to the next digit up. So we'll move this 5 that we're rounding in the tenths place up to a 6. And making our final answer 18 and 6 tenths. And again, we can make a little more sense of this by looking at a number line. The number we're given is 18 and 57 hundredths. It is much closer to the next number up, than it is to rounding down to the 18 and 5 tenths. This distance is much further than this distance. And because this number we have is closer to the next number up, we round up. In this next example, we're asked to round to the nearest hundredth. And the number is 4 and 601 thousandths. Well, step 1 says identify the digit that we're rounding. Well, the digit in the hundredths place is a 0. Step 2 says identify the digit to the right of that 0 that we will use to round. That's the digit in the thousandths place, and that's a 1. So step 3, if that digit in step 2 is 0 to 4, and a 1 is between 0 and 4, keep the digit we're rounding as it is. Well, that means we keep the 0 as it is. So our final answer, rounded, is 4 and 60 hundredths. Or now, because our number ends in a 0, we could also write 4 and 6 tenths, and that would also be correct. But I'll leave it as 4 and 60 hundredths for clarity. And again, let's make sense of this on the number line. We are given 4 and 601 thousandths. The distance between 4 and 601 thousandths and the next number down is simply 1 1,000th. It's this distance here, which is much less than this distance here between our number 4 and 601 thousandths and the next number up, 4 and 61 hundredths. And so because it's closer, we round down or we keep the number as it is, 4 and 6 tenths or 4 and 60 hundredths. In this example, round to the nearest hundredth. We're given 94 and 855 thousandths. Step 1 says, identify the digit and the place value you were rounding. Well, we're rounding the hundredths. The digit there is a 5. Step 2 says, identify the digit to the right of that 5 that you will use. Well, the digit to the right of the hundredths place is in the thousandths. That's another 5. And so, in step 3, if that digit in step 2 is between 0 and 4, well, it's not, so let's move on. If the digit in step 2 is between 5 and 9, it is in fact a 5. Well, we're going to move the digit that we're rounding up to the next digit. So what's up from 5? 6, making our final rounded answer 98 and 86 hundredths. Let's make a little more sense of this on our number line. Here's the number we're given, 94 and 855 thousandths. It is closer to the next number up than it is to the number that we begin with. And so we round up because it is closer. In this example, we're asked to round to the nearest whole number. Whole number is another way of saying the ones place. So step 1 says identify the digit in the place you are rounding. That's the ones place, and that is a 6. Step 2, identify the digit to the right that you will use to round. That digit to the right of the ones place is the tenths, and the digit there is a 9. Step 3 says, if the digit in step 2 is between 5 and 9, and in fact this 9 is between 5 and 9, move the digit you are rounding up to the next digit up, and that is the 6. We are rounding the 6, so it must move up to a 7, making our final rounded answer 67. That's the nearest whole number. And if we take a look at our number line to make more sense of it, the original number is 66 and 9 tenths. That's all we really need to focus on. This is just here to confuse you a little bit. And 66 and 9 tenths is right here, much closer to the next number up than the number that came before it, the whole number that came before it. This distance is much greater than this distance. And so we round up to 67. All right, one more example before you try some. Here we're asked to round to the nearest whole number again. Well, in step 1, identify the digit that we're rounding. That's a 5 in the ones place. Step 2, identify the digit to the right of that we will use to round. That's a 5 in the tenths place. And in step 3, if the digit in step 2 is between 5 and 9, and in fact 5 is between 5 and 9, move the digit you're rounding to the next digit up. So the next digit from 5 is 6, making our final rounded up answer 16. And again, using a number line to make sense of what we're doing, we can see our original number, 15 and 5 tenths, rounds up to 16 because it is closer to 16 than it is to the whole number that came before it. This distance is, it's actually equal to, but that's why we have to pick a direction. We pick to round up, and so we do. All right, now you try. Round this number to the nearest whole number, 9 and 371 thousandths. Okay, Did you identify that the digit that we're rounding is the 9? That's the ones place. And the digit we'll use to round is in the tens place, the 3. And since 3 is between 0 and 4, we'll keep the digit we're rounding, the 9, as it is. And so your final rounded answer should have been 9. In this example, you're asked to round to the nearest tenth. Try it. Okay. Did you, in step 1, identify the digit in the place we're rounding as the 7 in the tenths place? And then in step 2, did you identify the digit that we use to round just to the right of that in the hundredths place? This is a 4. And then in step 3, did you say, oh, 4 is between 0 and 4, so I'm going to keep the 7 as it is, making my final rounded answer 679. Let me make that a little bit neater. 679 and 7/10. Let's try one more before you begin some independent work. Here you are asked to round to the nearest hundredth. Try that. All right. In step 1, did you identify the digit in the hundredths place as the 2? That's what we're rounding. In step 2, did you identify the digit to the right that we will use to round? That's the 0 in the thousandths place. And then in step 3, did you say, oh, if the digit in step 2, that's the 0, is between 0 and 4, and it is, we're going to keep the 2 in the hundredths place as it is, making our final rounded answer 207 and 72 hundredths. Our learning target today is I can round decimal numbers to the nearest one or whole number, tenth and hundredth. Let's get practicing. Please let me know if you need help.